Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Ten Hag faces more power struggles according to reports. Also a major manager update which we spoke about a couple of days ago, and looks like Nagelsmann is going to go back to Bayern Munich. So where would you go if Ten Hag goes in relation to that? Apparently Man United have slapped a £100 million price tag onto Marcus Rashford as well, which is also, I suppose, very, very interesting. And a few other bits to get into. Also, you know, it's been an interesting day, I've got to say. It's been a very interesting day. Another day of being brought into stories I don't really want to be involved in. I suppose people have got a living to make, and using us as per usual. And it probably makes them feel good. But we will react to that, of course, because it is what we're here to do. What I will say from the off is that it's obviously a very quiet Monday in the Manchester United journalistic room, because I feel the pile-on Garnacho is disgusting. And I'm only going to be consistent here. I mean, a lot of you said I was in the Rashford fan club 2 months ago when I stuck up for him after Belfast. People forget about that. Me and you fell out. I said Ten Hag was right to bring Rashford back for the Wolves game. Most of you said no, you're in his fan club. So don't listen. I don't get involved in the Twitter or the X stuff. That's for morons. You know, I just post and get out. I speak to you. You're the community that have made us what we are. You're the community that knows what the truth is. I don't listen to all that nonsense out there because it's just, you know, quite rightly, a lot of it's just bullshit. But, you know, I think that we've got a quiet Monday, and the pile-on to Garnacho from the mainstream, who are trying to cause a pile-on to us, is absolutely hilarious. But we'll talk about that in a moment, because what I do want to talk about is, look, some good stories that are coming out. Nagelsmann to Bayern, I think, is a concern. What does that mean around Ten Hag? This £100 million for Rashford story, what's that all about? But more importantly, there is this story coming out from a certain journalist called Samuel Luckhurst. He is the Manchester Evening News chief correspondent, which I actually thought meant something until today, but we'll get onto that in a moment. He's basically saying that Manchester United players are convinced that Erik Ten Hag is going to get the sack. Well, not all players, but some players. And that certain players are waiting to see what happens with Ten Hag before they make a decision about their future. I.e., there may well be players in the dressing room that are thinking they might go, but if Ten Hag goes, they might want to stay, which is obviously massively alarming if true, because that would explain a lot about why certain players aren't really playing to their, you know, to their full ability. If they're sort of like, I'm going in the summer if this manager stays, but if he goes, I might stay. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're player A and you're not playing well for Man United, but if Ten Hag goes, you'll stay, that sort of means that if Ten Hag goes, you'll stay. If Ten Hag stays, you'll go. So why would you put a shift in a United shirt? And suddenly things start to make a little bit of sense, don't they? For example, a player in the United team at the moment that's not playing well will suddenly start playing well when Ten Hag goes. But if they play well now and Ten Hag stays and they know they're going anyway, why would they play well? So that's sort of what we're talking about here. However, and we will talk about Frimpong, we will talk about Rashford, and we will talk about Nagelsmann. I have to say, I file this story firmly under bullshit because Samuel Luckhurst has written it. And, you know, maybe in the past I'd go, well, he is chief correspondent for Manchester Evening News. He's been to college. He's got his blue tick. He's been a coffee maker. He's worked his way up from making the coffee to chief correspondent at the Manchester Evening News. I would normally give him a bit of respect, but I would file anything he writes now in the bin. Because when you've got a correspondent who is a journalist that's been close to Manchester United for years, doing a podcast today, talking about Garnacho in the way that he did, and then not naming me, but clearly talking about me, saying, I don't know why Garnacho is interacting with a YouTuber who's not even a real Man United fan. I laugh my head off, because he really is rattled, isn't he? He really is rattled by our little community that we've built. And the usual stuff came out again about paying match-going fans and internet fans, because he's got form for this. Apparently he's a top journalist and he's a top red. And there is a difference between support. There is online fake fans and there are match-going fans who pay to watch Manchester United. And there's a distinctive line. And if you are not a match-going fan who's not on the internet, then you're not a proper fan. What Samuel fails to understand is that every match-going fan I know is on Twitter. And what he fails to understand is countless people, present and past, who work on the United stand are match-paying fans. So, look, he clearly has his issues and thinks that he's speaking on behalf of match-going fans, but doesn't realise they're all on Twitter, and a lot of them watch this channel. So, when we're talking about a story from Samuel Lucas saying that Manchester United players think Ten Hag's getting sacked and Manchester United players are waiting to see what happens, etc., I don't really believe it. I don't really believe his stories because I know for a fact he talks shit because he's talking shit about me. You know, saying that I'm a YouTuber who's not even a real Manchester United fan, this is from a guy who's been called out numerous times over the years. I've said, you're a journalist. Sit me down, have an interview. You can have the exclusive. Not interested. So I've got no interest in anything he says because I have first-hand experience being me and knowing why I support Manchester United. And when it goes back to me being a kid, being taught about it by my dead granddad, when a journalist says I'm not a real Manchester United fan, I take issue with it in the sense that I think you make your stories up, Samuel. I think you pluck them from your arse and wipe them all over the Manchester Evening News. Because that's what you're doing about me when you sit on a podcast as Manchester United's chief correspondent on the Manchester Evening News and you say, why is Garnacho interacting with a YouTuber who's not a Manchester United fan? And I know for a fact I am a Manchester United fan and I was taught about Manchester United by my dead granddad when I was about 6 years old. So I know you are full of shit because I factually know the true story about what you've said. So I don't believe anything you say anymore because you've blown your credibility because you're rattled. You're rattled about the fact that Garnacho interacted with me and he didn't interact with you. And you're rattled by the fact that Rasmus did an interview with me and you didn't get it. Because the thing about the Manchester Evening News is it's had an association with Manchester United for decades, going back to the 60s, and people like David Meek. They have a great relationship with the club. And Samuel made the tea at the Manchester Evening News and basically worked his way up in an organisation that already had a relationship with Manchester United. And that is why he is afforded the privilege of going into press conferences. Whereas this community started from a bedroom, apparently, and yet has had interviews with players, has been in press conferences, and he doesn't like it. And a lot of other people don't like it. And I'm willing to sit and have an open, honest conversation with these journalists whenever they want it. But you know what? If you stick your nose in a beehive, you're going to get stung. And I don't believe your stories because you've outed yourself as somebody that tells lies when you are rattled. And not only that, I also want to bring it back to the proper show and take issue with a few things. A few things are that basically this online fan thing needs to stop. The United stand, we're not journalists. We're not journalists. We're not media. We are a fan community. And we've always championed ourselves on the fact that that's what we do. Some people don't like it, but some people do. And when somebody is constantly calling online fans not proper fans and the match-going fans real fans, educate yourself. People who go to the game are on social media. It's not the 1990s. Everybody's got a phone. And that's what happens. And also, I think that this Garnacho thing is just very personal because he liked my tweet. If he'd liked Samuel's tweet or Andy Mitten's tweet, it would be fine. But because it's the United stand, there's been a pile onto a player, which is unacceptable. And looking at and listening to that podcast today and looking at some of the stuff that's been said, some of the stuff that's been said about Garnacho is that their reprisals have to happen. It's a shame to see what he's done. He knows what he's doing. It's unacceptable. And you don't get it at other clubs. And reprisals must happen. Basically saying that he's in the wrong and that and he must be, made an example of. And he deserves the same treatment as people like Rashford, Ronaldo and Sancho. Okay, this lad, Garnacho, is 19. Let's just frame that for a minute. You've got journalists well into their 30s picking on a 19-year-old. That's what you've got here. One thing I always say is, whether it's Chong, Camboire, and I said it at the weekend, when you're a youth player at Man United, cut them some slack. Cut them some slack. They're going to make mistakes. They're young lads. Why are we piling in on a 19-year-old? And why are we comparing Garnacho liking a tweet to a 37-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, a 26-year-old Marcus Rashford, and Jadon Sancho's well into his 20s as well? This is a slow Monday where certain journalists have tried to pile on to our community when they're actually causing the pile-on a 19-year-old because he liked a tweet. It was my tweet he liked. I stayed quiet. I mentioned it on the morning show yesterday, but I've stayed quiet about it. I don't agree with him liking the tweet. If they'd liked Samuel's tweet or Andy Mitten's tweet, I wouldn't agree with it. I don't agree with it. But the pile-on is too much. It's a liked tweet. That's it. It's been unliked. People are talking on that podcast on the Manchester Evening News. They said he should be dropped for the game against Coventry. I'm like, he liked a fucking tweet. It's a mistake. In no way, and it was our tweet, in no way do I think, oh, the glamour, always liked my tweet. I don't know why he did it. I was surprised by it. I don't think he should have done it. So I wish he hadn't done it, because I think the pile-on to him is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. He liked a tweet. They're on social media. Some of them might be watching this show right now. That's the life they live. 19. And you've got some bloody Zoomer or Boomer or whatever you call them, you know, going in on a 19-year-old like he's hip, like he knows what they're up to. He's 19. He's 19. They're probably watching Angry Ginge play FIFA Pro Clubs. God knows what they're doing. And we should give him the same treatment as Ronaldo, who decided not to come on and walk down the tunnel, or Jadon Sancho, who decided to write a tweet and not apologise, or Marcus Rashford, who went on the piss the night before training. Yeah, let's treat him exactly the same. Come on. Look, I think in this fan base, there is this need and desire to constantly create problems, and it gets aimed at us. But actually, if you watch the show, there's divisive opinion, but there's never a pile-on. And the best thing is, I see this stuff on Twitter where people say, you hate Rashford. You're always calling a pile-on with Rashford. I hate the way Rashford plays for Man United, and that's where it ends. If you go back 2 months ago in January, when he'd been, you know, people were saying ban him for a month, I, on my own, it felt like, on that show, said, I think it's dealt with. I think United have dealt with it really well. He misses one game in the FA Cup and he plays against Wolves. And 96% of you, I remember the poll, said no, he shouldn't play against Wolves. And I had all sorts about being in his fan club, being on the payroll. I'm on nobody's fan club. I'm on nobody's payroll. I love Bruno Fernandes. He's been crap this season. Oh, you hate Bruno. I do not. I just know the levels that these players can play to, and I'm not going to pretend that they're playing to them. I don't have an agenda with anybody. I don't dislike anybody. We just talk about it, and God, you lot will jump on me if you disagree. And we've had a few. We've had a few recently, and that's the way it should be. So, look, I just think that I said the same about Rashford. Ten Hag took him out of one game for going out on the piss and missing training. He played the next game. That was the punishment. So whether it's the Manchester Evening News or it's the Athletic or it's a fan on the streets, whoever it is, if you're saying that Garnacho should miss the FA Cup semi-final for liking a tweet when Rashford missed one game for going on the piss, and I agreed with him missing only one game, Garnacho should get told never to do it again and start against Coventry because he's one of our best players. He should not be punished and miss a game for liking a fucking tweet. Let's grow the fuck up. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. He shouldn't have done it. He's a 19-year-old kid learning his way with the world at his feet. We know what footballers are like. They live in a bubble. Everyone tells them they're great. They have egos. They have to have an ego to make it to the level that they do. It's a mistake. Move on. It's as simple as that. I mean, I find it incredible, absolutely incredible that people. I mean, if that's not, I'll repeat it again. This is not me sat doing a video saying Garnacho needs to be banned. It's the same as Sancho, Ronaldo, and Rashford. Ban him. But I tell you what, if I did, I would be clipped up and called a bully and toxic within seconds. But it's acceptable for the mainstream to cause a pile-on a 19-year-old and say that he's the same as Sancho, Ronaldo, and Rashford. It's nothing like it. And also, you've got to take in my opinion, you've got to take into account that Ronaldo was a senior pro in his 30s, Rashford's a senior pro in his mid-20s, and Sancho's been here long enough as well. Garnacho's 19. Like, he is allowed to make mistakes. Many of you would bring Mason Greenwood back. You know, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but he's liked to tweet. They live on social media. That's what they do. And, you know, I'm no spring chicken myself, but I understand how the youth work. And they are on social media. That's their world. They've grown up with it. You know, it's incredible. And also, just to add, because I know a few people have been mentioning this, he also said in the same podcast, Manchester Evening News, also said the club have made massive mistakes letting the United Stand or other fan outlets into press conferences, etc. They basically have put their toe in the water, letting this lot in. I mean, this lot. Yeah, football fans. Yeah, this lot, you know, this lot who didn't go to university and learn to be a fucking journalist. Wow. What an amazing achievement that is, to go and learn how to be a journalist. Yeah, I'd love to go and do a journalist course and learn how to make stuff up and lie about people. Yeah, I'd love to do that. You know, I would advise you go to the University of Life and actually touch grass a little bit and understand about talking to people and actually, you know, finding out the truth from people through relationships. But, you know, that's by the by. Man United will be bitten and have learnt their lesson from interacting with these lot. It's been raised eyebrows amongst match-going paying fans. I mean, I don't even know what this is. Many of you will be match-going paying fans. Look, I've got a Stoney on. I'm a real fan. What's he talking about? You know, match-going real fans. Who are these match-going paying fans, by the way? Who are these match-going paying fans that aren't on the internet? Because they don't exist. They're a myth. Every match-going fan I know, whether they like what we do or they don't, they're on Twitter. I see the bloody abuse. So I don't know. I don't know. And it goes on to say, you know, look, it's just this obsession with people who pay to watch Manchester United. Look, we've got the best away support in the world, in my opinion. They've sang for Moyes, they sang for Van Gaal, they'll sing for Ten Hag, whether you agree with them or not. You know, we have. But there's only 75,000 at a home game and, you know, a handful of 1,000 who go away. We've got millions of fans. What is this obsession with match-going fans being the only fans that matter? It's weird. It's really weird. I would implore you not to read the Manchester Evening News. They're only interested in a few thousand fans who actually pay to watch matches. You know, I wouldn't listen to the podcast. I wouldn't buy the paper. You know, it's very clear that they keep having an issue with people who are online. But the funny thing is, I think a lot of people who don't go to ground, don't go to every single game, might go to 2 or 3 games, might go once a season. But I guarantee they're buying a shirt. But guarantee they're paying for Sky or TNT. It's just odd. It's odd. But ultimately, we've spent too much time talking about it because really, they're just rattled. They're rattled. And as for the club dipping their toe in the water, you know, doing stuff with the United Stand, it wasn't the club who gave us the Rasmus Højlund interview. The club allowed us to do it at Carrington. It's not the club haven't given us the steam off their shit. The club don't work with the United Stand. You know, press conferences aren't anything to do with the club really. We're not at the press conferences for the Premier League because we're not allowed to be. So I don't know. I don't know. I find it all very weird, but yeah, I think I've said my piece on that without having to go to the gutter and make up lies about people aren't real fans unless they're a match-going paying fan, or, you know, he liked a fucking tweet from a YouTuber who's not a real Man United fan. I mean, the day someone starts calling me a Forest fan is the day I've won. If that's the only thing you've got, we've won. I say I won, we've won. They're attacking us, aren't they? They're attacking all of you. You're not real fans. You're just hyperbole internet fans. That's what you are. You know, you're not match-going fans. You don't matter. You don't pay. You're just internet fans hiding behind Twitter accounts like Martial's left foot and Pogba's shorts. You're not real. You're not real. Do you feel it has to do with him being foreign, says that kid Vic? What, Garnacho? I don't know. Delusional Unicorn says, Lucas basically saying fans who aren't able to watch games at the stadium because of living in different countries aren't real fans. No, to be fair, he did say he knows American fans who pay to watch football and people out the UK who pay to go. I mean, look, I don't know what he's talking about really, which is basically the whole story. Ryan says, can we get on with the show now, please? I'll be the dictator of that, Ryan. We're a community. We're not just a news show. We've always been a community. And when people attack it with lies, I've got every right to reply to it. Don't know how you handle the hate mark from mainstream. Appreciate your work. Says some, you know, Will, I was doing the podcast today, Goldbridge Saves Football. Please do give it a listen. He says, I don't know how you put up with it. You know, the constant bullshit. And I said, well, it's sort of been going on for years. When I very first started, that lad from the other United channel tweeted out on Christmas Day morning, oh no, it's a shame Goldbridge isn't dead. Let's hope for next year. Apparently it's banter. We've never met each other and he fucking hates me for no reason. But yeah, apparently it was banter. That was a welcome to this world. Someone wishing you were dead on Christmas Day morning. Hi Mark, I'm a match going season ticket holder and I don't agree with that, says Rozzo. It's funny how there's an unrest every time a manager is up for sacking. I want Ten Hag to stay because sacking managers never solved our problems, but Ten Hag did this to himself, says Assis. Well, I'll talk about that in a moment because it's very interesting. Wackin says, I love the show. Could it be that his future pile-on Garnacho could be incentive for him to move to Real Madrid? Enjoying the conversation, says Wackin. Look, I don't agree with Garnacho liking the tweet, but, you know, it's a massive overreaction and it's because it's a Monday and there's nothing else to do. And it's also because he liked my tweet. It's really pissed off the mainstream because he liked a United Stand tweet. As the Rasmus interview did. They hate it. They absolutely hate it. But honestly, if I was a Man United player, I would interact with fan community because that's the modern thing. I wouldn't have a bloody. I wouldn't know how to interact with some of these journalists. They're just, you know, I'm not going to be disrespectful. Let them do that. When did everyone start expecting 19-year-olds to make nothing but good decisions, says Brandon? That's my point. When I was 19 years of age, God, when I was 23, I was doing stupid things. At 19, you know what? I wouldn't have liked the tweet. I'd have replied to the tweet. And that's the thing. You're picking on a 19-year-old. This is why I always say, you know, when you go online and you see someone like Chong shit when he's playing for us at 19 or Camboila's cost us the game, I'm like, they're teenagers. Fuck it. Have a little, just take a breath. Take a breath. They're going to make mistakes. That's the whole point. They're going to have bad games. They're going to be inconsistent. You know, comparing them to Cristiano Ronaldo at 37. Come on. If Marcus guaranteed you 50 goals next season, but down the tools the following year, would you keep him? We can't carry players that turn up when they want, says Chris. He recognised his mistake. It's over. He's young. Look, the official line from the club on Garnacho is it's done. It's dusted. It was dealt with very quickly. It's over. So that's true, Sean. Smill says, if Ten Hag drops Garnacho and keeps Rashford against Coventry, I'm sure he'll have no fans left in Manchester, says Smill. He's been liking tweets for ages, by the way. They only took notice because it was your tweet. He even liked a tweet of not liking being subbed at Chelsea. I know, Mario, but people don't, you know, this is journalists for you. They don't even do the fucking research. The previous week, he liked a tweet about something else very similar. But, you know, we'll do the research, leave them to, you know, cause a pile-on. Rogine says 19-year-olds are adults, aren't they? Grown men who can get shipped to war. He's not Yamal, he's an adult. I disagree. I was at Old Trafford for the Liverpool game. What people were shouting in the stadium wasn't different from what you discuss here all the time. What is the obsession about online fans, says Shahin. Mark, I've got a theory. Do you think Rashford is downing tools because of Sancho and Bruno because of De Gea? Their friends have been shunned by the club, says JT. Well, if that was true, why would Ten Hag pick them? That's the only thing I would say. Are INEOS waiting till Champions League not mathematically possible before Ten Hag goes? Maybe there's a contract clause, says Patrick. It's jealousy, says Shahin. He even went as far as calling online fans trolls because hiding behind anonymous abbeys. Also criticised the club for giving you lot info. Very salty, says Mario. Disgusting behaviour if it's true from the players, says Stephen. Mark, you don't name your sources, yet you hate on others, says Gary. Well, that's not true, Gary, is it? I don't name the sources because I respect them and they don't want me to tell you them. But, you know, ultimately, you'll find out whether they're true or not, like Alexis Sanchez and every other bit that's been true ever since. It's funny how I said to you 3 days ago that Nagelsmann's going to Bayern Munich, and lo and behold, Plettigol half an hour ago has said that Nagelsmann's in advanced talks with Bayern Munich. You can't disclose your sources all the time because they won't tell you anything else. But what I'm saying is, in relation to Lucker's source, I don't believe him because I know he's a liar. Because he sat on a podcast today and said that I'm not a real Man United fan. And unless I, imagined being 6-year-old watching VHS tapes of Manchester United with my granddad, who's now dead, I find it very offensive that a so-called journalist is telling lies like that. So, that's why I don't believe his sources, because I think he makes stuff up. And he's made something up about me. If you want to believe him, that's up to you. I'm sure sometimes he'll be right. But, Mark, United fans want change but can't take it when it gets worse before it gets better. I hope you're well. Well, the thing is, Spooky, the interesting thing is, the last time I checked, we were fucking shit. The last time I checked, numerous players were playing shit. And it's almost like, let's start fighting amongst ourselves. We're playing absolute shite. And we're arguing amongst ourselves. It is absolutely crazy. But look, you know what? Going back to what we were talking about, player power, player struggle, are certain players waiting to see what happens with the manager? Do certain players think Ten Hag's going to get the sack? I mean, this is to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if some of that was true. On the other hand, the most important people are INEOS, and INEOS, I disagree with it. They've kept their cards very close to their chest. Now, there are a couple of scenarios with INEOS. One, they've already made their decision. We had Ben Foster on earlier. He feels that they have. Two, they haven't made their decision yet. If they haven't made their decision yet, then maybe they will look at all of this and say the structure around the manager is absolutely disgusting. There is nobody there to help him. Anybody would fail in this situation. We're basically operating like the Wild West. There is indiscipline and, chaos all over the place. In fact, look at this season. Anthony's been arrested. Sancho started the season and has had to go on loan, having not apologised. Rashford's been out on the piss. You've got people, leaking stuff. You've got people liking stuff. It's absolutely out of control. And it's not just the manager's fault to control all of that and train the team and pick the team and deal with an injury crisis. So INEOS might look at it and go, yeah, Ten Hag's not doing very well, but there might be some causation here where, the structure above him, a lot of these problems would disappear if we put that structure in place. And they might decide, you know what, we're not sacking the manager, we're sorting a few other things out first. Maybe they're going to try and sort those things out before the end of the season. Maybe they'll give Ten Hag another season. Maybe they've already made their mind up and they're just going to wait until Ten Hag, finishes the season. I certainly think that's where we're heading. I think there was a possibility, and I spoke about it last week, that they sack him early this week and give the interim 3 easy games on paper, Coventry away, Sheffield United and Burnley at home, and then you start interviewing the likes of Nagelsmann, etc. But obviously we're not going to do that. And then, of course, the biggest elephant in the room is the fact that if you do sack Ten Hag, where are you going to go? Amorim's clearly going to go to Liverpool. Nagelsmann sounds like he's going to Bayern. We've never spoken to Hansi Flick, and he's never been a consideration for the club. So you're left with an expensive De Zerbi, who was very lucky not to lose to Burnley at the weekend and is performing shit. And 20 million to get him out of his release clause, or you go for Potter, or you go for Southgate. So, I know there's a lot of people out there that want to see Erik Ten Hag getting sacked, but there actually isn't a lot of good options out there. And look, I still am very, very frustrated with Ten Hag's obsession with picking certain players. But I still will sit here and say I would love it if INEOS said we're going to stick with Ten Hag for another year. And I know that would piss a lot of you off, but I still really believe, despite the chaos, I still think that next season, if Ten Hag was here and given a proper summer window to get rid of players and bring players in, I think we could have a good season next season, as much as we could with a new manager. So I just would like to see United try something different. But, I need to do a poll on this, actually. We've not done it for a while. But in no way, shape or form do I definitely think that's going to happen. And in no way, shape or form do I think that it's acceptable the way that Erik Ten Hag is behaving at the moment with his team selections. Like, he can sit there and say, well, I don't really care what's acceptable to you because I'm a qualified coach and you're not. But I would say, well, I don't really care whether you think it's acceptable or not. I don't respect your decisions. I don't respect your selections. For me, it's chaos. For me, it's favouritism. And, as I said before, the fact that Garnacho liked what I tweeted, which was basically saying that he was unfairly subbed and held out to, thrown under the bus. Whether people think that was a harsh tweet or not, that was my perception. I felt it was very obvious that after the game, Ten Hag was pointing at Garnacho being a problem in that team. And my feeling was, how can Garnacho be a problem in that team compared to Casemiro and Rashford who've been doing it for weeks? So that, I stand by what I said in that. And obviously I think some players agree with that. They shouldn't be expressing that publicly, but it shows that it's not just the fan base that's frustrated with Ten Hag. It's very, very, very obvious, whether we like it or not, whether we should know it or not. And what's different, anyway? What's different from a player liking a tweet to a journalist saying dressing room sources aren't happy with Ten Hag? In a way, I'd rather a player like to tweet. At least we know it's genuine. Dressing room sources we've been listening to for 2 years. Who are the dressing room sources? When a player likes a tweet, at least we know who the bloody player is. And look, Garnacho's not the only one. You've got people zipping their mouth, putting those emojis out. There's a lot of players not happy with Ten Hag. There's a lot of fans not happy with Ten Hag. I ain't got a problem with that. But I would still stick with him because I think he's the best option at the moment. And I also think that we've got to stop sacking managers. I don't know how it's going to work. As I said, Plettigol, who's a German journalist, half an hour ago said that Bayern Munich are in advanced talks with Nagelsmann. I said this 2 or 3 days ago and got called a bullshitter. Fabrizio's spoken about it as well. So it looks like Bayern Munich are going back for Nagelsmann, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. But if Nagelsmann's off the field, and I wouldn't sack Ten Hag anyway, for the reasons I've just said, but Nagelsmann's the only one I would even pivot to, consider. If Nagelsmann's not even there, I'm like, please don't sack him. I mean, I know he probably deserves the sack in many of your minds, but, there's just nothing out there. There's nothing out there. Would INEOS be tempted in going for McKenna? I think McKenna would be the wrong choice at the wrong time. Just because he might get promoted with Ipswich from the Championship. You're talking about Man United, mate. We've gone from a guy that's took a club to a Champions League semi-final and won multiple Eredivises to a guy that may or may not get promoted with Ipswich Town. I think it's too big a step. It might work, but I think it's too big a risk. Mark, we all know that these journalists are the fake smile in the presser and make stuff up. I wish INEOS would show some leadership from the top, says Terp. Very good point about goalkeeper situation on your video with Ben earlier. Aside from injuries, that's a huge factor in why we've dropped points this season, says Goldia. I mean, look, if you didn't watch the video with Ben Foster, at the end of it, I said, we've almost forgotten the enormous mistake of letting David De Gea go. It was a massive mistake because we did need a ball-playing goalkeeper, but we haven't played with the ball. We haven't played a style of football to play with a ball-playing goalkeeper. So we did it a year too soon, didn't we? All the best with the book, mate, says Leo. It was great. It's behind me, look. Mark Goldbridge gets in. Get your pre-order in. It was great hearing about all the players you would get rid of. I wonder what players you would get over a period of time of transfer windows, says Leo. I've got to have a think on that, mate, really, because it's not that easy. I mean, look, Elise, I think, is very high on the list. I think that Branthwaite's very high on the list. Tadebo's very high on the list, but we'll see. Glennie says, if you're lucky enough to get a ticket in the ballet once a year or pay a fortune for a package you call a day tripper, so can't win with some people, says Glennie. Man United is beyond the 75k match attending fans. You could see the disappointment in Kenya when the team underperforms. United is a global phenomenon, says Enzomo. And Wakas says, these journalists should know the odd hours we online fans have to get up to watch United play, not to mention the amount of subscriptions we have, says Wakas. Mate, this is what I mean. I can't believe, and it's not the first time, I can't believe a news outlet are happy to be associated with saying things like real fans are match-going paying fans and the online fans are trolls. It's just, ultimately it's flawed. But secondly, one of the big things I said from the very start with this is it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're a Man United fan, you're part of the family. And I don't care whether you're from India, United States, it doesn't matter. Because I do the watch-alongs, I've done the live shows, I've been on social media, and I know that around the world, whether it's Australia, whether it's Mexico, people were getting up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning when they've got work the next day, depriving themselves of sleep to watch Van Gaal or Ollie or even Ten Hag. Now, match-going fans are the lifeblood of football. We shouldn't be having a conversation about dividing fans on that and who's, there shouldn't be who's a better fan. But look, I know people like Beth and Ricky, who live in Manchester, get in a car, half an hour, park the car, walk down to the ground. Normal hours, 3 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 8:30 at night, whatever. Then you've got old Jimmy in Australia, who is getting up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning for every single game. Do you want to compete with who the real fan is? Why is that even a thing? It's incredible. And I'm very proud of this community because it's one thing we've said from 10 years ago to today. There is no top red. There is no better fan. There is no voice for the fans. It's a community. And that's what we should be doing. And as I said, last time I checked, we were fucking shit. Why is it that fans can't have an opinion? It should never wander into abuse. It should never wander into personal hatred. You know, you shouldn't be there calling managers' names and players' names. And when I've crossed that line in the moment, you know, that's why I always try and say it's the pink boots or, you know, you're Pratt or something like that, because you can lose it in the heat of the moment. But you know, dividing fans on whether they go to games or where they live is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Let's look, Marcus Rashford, very, very quickly. Story today: £100 million is the price that Man United have apparently put on Marcus Rashford. Is Marcus Rashford one of those players that might be waiting till the end of the season to see if Ten Hag goes or stays? And maybe if Ten Hag stays, Rashford goes, puts a transfer request in. And maybe if Ten Hag goes, Rashford stays and Sancho comes back. Maybe, maybe not. The information I have on Rashford, and I've had it for about 4 weeks, and I said it to you 4 weeks ago, Rashford will be here next season, Bruno will be here next season, McTominay will be here next season. Now, I'll either be right or wrong about that, but we won't know till September. The reason I am vocal about Rashford is because, one, I know he's better than he is. Two, he's a player I actually like. And you know what? When I was growing up, my granddad was probably the hardest critic I ever had about football. But he probably cared the most about my football. And what people don't realise in the modern day is that criticism is not hate. And when I'm critical of Marcus Rashford, and I think a lot of people are the same, it's not because I want us to sell him in the summer. It's not because I'm like, get out my club. It's because I know he's going to be here next year. And none of us, himself included, can have another year like this year or the year before last. So you hope that the criticism gets through and he actually looks in the mirror and tries to play like he did last year, because he ain't going anywhere. So if you're getting angry or, you know, toxic or whatever towards Marcus Rashford because you think that that anger will force him out of the club, there's absolutely no way he's going this summer. No one's going to buy him anyway. PSG don't want him, and there's no other club that's going to buy him. And he doesn't want to go. And United don't want to sell him. So he's not going anywhere. So by all means, be critical because he's not running or he's not playing well. But the motivation behind that, for me, is in the hope that he starts playing well. I'd love him to score a hat-trick on Sunday. I remember saying it in October, he will come good. And I'm still saying it in April. I'm amazed at how long it's... And I know there's been goals here and there, but that's not Rashford. Like, Rashford should be playing week in, week out really, really well. So he isn't going to go anywhere. You know, people can talk about 100 million, this, that, and the other. I mean, what I will say is, if PSG offered 70 million, I'd probably take it because I think it's best for him. I think the damage his performances have done this season has been really eye-opening to see in the fan base. And, you know, there's so many people giving up on Rashford. It's unbelievable. And I don't know whether he can come back from that with some, because we know there are people out there that are just, you know, very tunnel visioned. But I don't expect him to go. So I don't really think that there's any truth in that story. I do like you, Mark, and the whole United stand, but why Faz is allowed calling Eric Ten Hag out sorts of names? That was very unprofessional. But you know what, Big Sam? I'm not here to divulge stuff that goes on. You know, I get a lot of people demanding we do this, that, and the other, and it's been going on for years. So let's move it away from Faz. We've had other people on the channel. We've had people say it about me. Like, you know, it's not that you're wrong, and it's not that you're right. But I said this to somebody a few weeks ago about somebody else, and they were like, you need to get rid of them. You need to do something public. And I said, we will do what we do in our way, and you will never know about it. And you won't know what's gone on, because that's how we run professionally. And people can say what they want on social media, and they can put lies out, and they can try and sack people or do whatever they do. But we're never going to do that. Like, people have left this channel, they've mouthed off. People have left this channel and been professional. And you'll notice we don't comment on it. Because whatever people think about what we are, we respect you as a community and we respect what we've built. And we're not about to start, laundering our dirty pants in public, because that's not how professionalism should work. So, look, you're entitled to your opinion on that, but you're not going to get a response on that in relation to, whether it's right or wrong on every individual case. Things will happen, but you won't know about it. What if Rashi has another subpar season, says Enzo Moot? Well, he's got a big contract, hasn't it? Eric Ten Hag lies every week and is a horrible communicator, says Premium. Hi, Mark. I think we need to make the best out of a bad situation. We are in an intense race for that Conference League qualification spot and we need to win, says Stevie. Look, I would love to see INEOS be a little bit more on the front foot. They can do whatever they want, and ultimately I hope they're going to work, but we are allowed to pass opinion. And where I think INEOS have gone wrong is that they're new to this, and they probably never, in all their business experience and all their sport experience, I don't think they've got any comprehension of how this fan base works. Today is a prime example. The Garnacho pile-on a 19-year-old who liked to tweet is coming from the mainstream, who are trying to flip it onto us and Garnacho, when actually it's been dealt with and we should just move on. But the point scoring is ridiculous and is basically causing a pile-on to us, which we can deal with, but more importantly, causing a pile-on to a 19-year-old who some people are saying should be dropped because he's the same as Ronaldo. So, this is the world that INEOS now operate in. You've got certain fan sections who think they're top Reds. You've got certain fans who just want everybody to be together, and I think we would include ourselves in that. And INEOS need to play the game. Like, you can't just feed one and not feed the other. And I think that the most important thing is that this fan base needs is leadership. It needs leadership and it needs communication. And my fear is that this season we're drifting, like we did with Rangnick. That I remember them Rangnick last 2 months vividly. The players down tools, the Glazers down tools, everybody just backed off and went, let's leave it to Rangnick, and then let's get rid of Rangnick, and then let's interview Ten Hag. And it was just like, write the season off. United should never write a season off. Until you've breathed your last breath of a season, you should never write the season off. And I would like to see INEOS just step forward and be a bit vocal. There is nothing stopping Sir Jim Radcliffe stepping forward tomorrow and doing an interview with the BBC and just reiterating what he's here for. Because it would send a message to the fan base ahead of an FA Cup semi-final that, we're rudderless. Publicly, we're rudderless at the moment. There is nobody leading from the front. Ten Hag is the only voice, and a lot of people don't respect it. I would love to see Sir Jim Radcliffe step forward and do a bloody interview and just say, we're Manchester United, the standards aren't where they need to be, the players need to step up, the fans need to get behind the team, and we need to push on. I know it's just PR, but we do need it sometimes. We do need it. And I'd also like, we wouldn't know about it, I'd also like him to take a wander down to Carrington and say it to the players. And say, look, you are Manchester United players. You might be thinking about the summer. You might be thinking about, bad performances. You are paid Manchester United players. You are paid to perform for Manchester United. What happens in the summer will depend on what you lot do over the next 2 months. But above all of that, you are paid to wear a shirt millions of Man United fans would die to do for free. That shirt means something. We have to start delivering in the next 2 months because we still have a great chance of winning a trophy. We still have a great chance of getting into Europe, and we're falling apart. We're squandering it. We're literally disintegrating in front of our fans' eyes, and it's not acceptable. Somebody needs to rally the troops, and it's very clear that Ten Hag can't do that on his own because some of these players clearly aren't playing for him. I would like to see something like that because if I was the owner of Man United, I would be very concerned that no European football is worse than the Europa League because, we need the money. We need the games. We need to be able to attract players. And we still have a cup to play for as well. So there's still a lot to play for. I would love to carry on talking, but we have got a watch-along in 5 minutes on That's Football, so you can join me over there for that. But very good show tonight, and really appreciate everyone who's got involved, everyone who's had a conversation about it. Look, a lot of people, I think, thought I was going to come on and actually blow the bloody doors off, but I'm genuinely not rattled by it. I'm genuinely I find it, it's this... How can you be rattled by something that's been going on for years? But what I don't want to see, as much as I don't agree with players liking tweets, and I've said that from the start, it's a pile-on of a 19-year-old. It's not right. And who's causing that pile-on? Who's the one writing the stories about it? You know, it's not fans. It's not fan media. It's actually the mainstream who've caused all this. And they're blowing it up. He's 19 years of age. He liked to tweet. Like, you know, it's almost something we get leveled at doing, and we're not doing it. It's what they're doing. And I actually thought, you know, at the end of the day, this is a news outlet that's had close relationships with Manchester United for years. And it's bloody embarrassing that they allow content to go out talking such absolute nonsense because they're rattled. It's ridiculous. You're meant to be a professional outlet. Act like one. If you want an interview, you can have it for free. If you want an interview, do it. If you're convinced I'm not a Man United fan, let's do it. But it's laughable how childish and rattled. And more important than that, by the way, I'm tired of this online fan paying match-going fan. There's no such thing. There's not. It doesn't exist. There isn't an online fan group that get up at 3 o'clock in the morning who aren't real fans, and then match-going fans who pay to go. There's no such thing. There's no division. And anybody who's calling that out is divisive. Every match-going fan I know is on social media. Because everybody I know is on social media, because that's the world we live in. That's the thing that's pissed me off the most, and it keeps being said all the time by Manchester Evening News. It's arrogant. It's arrogant. It's superiority, and it's not fair, and it needs to stop. I can deal with all the other stuff, but that's not fair. Anyway, I will see you over on That's Football in a moment. Take care, everyone. Absolute legends. Oh, don't forget, my book's behind me there. You can pre-order it. Upset the mainstream even more by buying the book. You can play your part. Scan the QR code. Thanks, everyone. I'll speak to you in a minute.